So, there's probably no topic that generates more requests for counseling appointments than the topic of what is my purpose. But, despite all the people that have come in, none of you have really answered that question for me yet. So keep on coming. Just keep showing up. I'm going to work this out. So this is a hot topic, though. It's a hot topic for a lot of people, and it's to understand this in the macro sense is what I intend to do today, in a very spiritual context. And of course, people like to get it defined very specifically, like what should I be doing, in my life? And that's an important question, of course, as well. I'm going to be doing a workshop. I didn't get in the announcements because it was sort of a late-breaking realization, and I was encouraged by some people to do this. A workshop on March 14th. It's a Saturday. It'll be in the morning. I think it's going to be 9 to 12, called Purpose, Passion, and Gifts. And it's something that I've done before. And it has to do with understanding the why. What is the big why? And what do we have passion for in life? And how does that translate into sharing our gifts with the world? So it's an inner exploration that may lead to an explanation as to giving us some guidance in our life. And no matter how many times I do this, I always get a nuance. I get something new. Something rises to the top, the gold standard shifts and changes and morphs for us. So we'll have more details on that going forward, but hold the date if that's something that speaks to you, March 14th in the morning. So there's a legend in the Hasidic tradition that I love, and it kind of coaxes us into knowing that we have a partner in this recognition of divine purpose. This legend says this, that when a baby is conceived, an angel accompanies the soul into the womb and lives with the fetus for the 9 months of gestation. And here in the blood-thumping shelter of the mother, angel and soul speak of the life to come and decide together on the purpose of this incarnation. What is this soul coming to contribute, and who will support this purpose? What challenges will be faced, and where comes love? Just as the birth pangs begin, when the soul must fully enter the baby self and the angel return to heaven, the angel reaches out and presses its finger against the baby's lip. We still have this mark, an indentation that runs sweetly from the upper lip to the nose. The philtrum is the angel's last gift. Hush, it whispers to the stirring child. Now you must forget. And all the while, the womb bears down around us, pushing us out into the waiting world. Here we come, imbued with purpose and arriving in amnesia, newborn. William Wordsworth said, "Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home." We resonate with this notion of remembering and forgetting because it seems like when it comes to spiritual teachings, that seems to be the cycle for many of us, doesn't it? It feels like we can come into this state of a realization, of recognition. We can feel the rush of well-being and a sense of peace or the joy that bubbles up in us, even in those sort of circumstances that seem to be contraindicate any kind of sense of well-being. We know that something greater than our circumstances is at the root of our being. We know that in moments, and maybe moments in nature when we are overwhelmed by the sense of beauty or the vastness, or we can see the connection that is happening so perfectly, the divine order that is orchestrating the nature's intricacies and the complexities and the harmonies that are expressed in nature. And for a moment, we think not. And we just feel this sense of awe. And then someone honks their horn, or someone speaks harshly to us, or there's something that distracts us, and then we're back into forgetting again. We're back into feeling very, very, very much aware that this is who I am, this carnal mesh, and I feel very vulnerable here because I can be hurt, and there's only so much, and I've got to grab all the gusto I can. I've got to make my mark in the world, and I've got to get enough, because if I don't have enough, then I won't have enough, and I won't survive. And we go into that whole forgetfulness thing again. And then the spiritual teachers and the spiritual teachings, they return to us again, like a cool breeze on a hot summer night, that refresh us again and bring us back to this new awareness that, wait, that's not the truth. Yes, that may be the appearance, but don't you remember that every master teacher, Jesus and all of them, have said, don't judge by those appearances. Those appearances will not give you reality. Those appearances are just one expression of this infinite possibilities of life. And so we begin to relax. We begin to let the senses sort of begin to recede in telling us what life is, what reality is. We begin to sort of give up that this is the only way that we can perceive reality is through the sensors. We give that notion up, and we make ourselves available. We make this grander sense of recognition of life available to us. We understand that there is this state of consciousness which is vast and unbounded, and connects us with all that is good and all that is life-affirming, and that which never ends, and that which cannot be contained or limited or delayed or obstructed by human circumstances or the challenges of life. And then we're back again, and we rise back up into the sense of knowing that this is who I am. And this is what life is about. And this is what I'm here to bear witness to moment after moment after moment. And that becomes our new purpose for life. And then we forget again, and the cycle continues. And so we know what we prefer, don't we? We know where we'd rather be standing and sitting and knowing. We know that when that upswell of recognition of this divine sense of being, refreshes us and opens our mind and our heart, springs open again. It's such an affirmation of, this is who I am. I am not this limited being. I'm not this person with a whole bunch of problems who's got a body that's wearing out and soon will die. Oh no. I am something eternal. I am something that's part of this grand design that did not have its birth in the physical, and will not have its death as this body lays itself down for the last time. That there is something grander, there is something greater. And that is where we want to live and move and have our being, and we want to have that in the forefront of our consciousness all the time, don't we? Isn't that why we come to places like this? Isn't that why we study and read scriptures and read inspired works and meditate and pray? It's because we want to have this experience, because we don't want to just have it as, sort of a special date night, with the divine, where you've saved up to go to that 4-star restaurant, and you're going to put your best clothes on, and you're going to have 2 hours of, culinary bliss. And you're going to be looking across the table at your beloved or your friend, and just know that this is as good as it gets. We don't want to have to put it up on the shelf of a someday realization. We want to have it here in the forefront of who and what we are. We want to know that, as the masters have said, it is spread before us, and we simply do not see that it is here. It's now. It's as plain as the nose on our face, although I can't see mine right now, but you can. So it's as plain as my nose that you see on my face. It's right here. It can't be any more obvious, and yet why don't we notice it all the time? Because we're so easily distracted by all of the sensory images, which just are constant images that, the world that we live in now, the technological, the imagery and the sounds which are constantly being run past us are representing to us that this is what we should be paying attention to, by the sheer volume, by the sheer repetition, by the sheer intensity of the messaging that comes to us through the internet and through television, if we're still watching that thing that sits in the corner of your living room. And it's suggesting to us that this is where we need to pay attention. And the more we pay attention to everything that is moving outside of ourselves, the less attention capacity that we have to put our attention where we would see the technicolor, the beauty, the immensity, and the awe of our own well-being, of our own true nature. So it does take real intentionality for us to reclaim our purpose. As purposeful as the divine is in having us realize who and what we are, that it would have us know that in any given moment, and that nothing is being withheld, and there is no limitation on the expression of your divinity from its source, from your source. There is a limitation on the ability to perceive, which has to do with how our vision and our perception is occluded by what we prefer to pay attention to, until we no longer prefer to pay attention in that way. And then we let the focus of the external world soften, begin to go out of focus, if you will, in a sense that allows space and allows the inner vision to be able to see what's more true than that. Does that make sense? I didn't write any of this. I just came to you from the part of me that I am pointing to you about. This is what we're about. We're not here to stick to some old agenda, not even the notes that I painstakingly wrote. And I mean painstakingly, because I am not a note taker. But we all think that we think we know what life is about, and at the level at which we live our life, we get the feedback, we get the effect of the life that we live. And if our life is devoted to trying to create the life that we want out here, and believe that then will translate into the inner experience that we would quantify as being well-being, peace of mind, love, all of those sort of inner qualities, then we're really putting a heavy responsibility upon the external world. And obviously it will never ever be able to match that, because that which is physical, in other words, that which is temporary, temporal, that's what comes and goes, can never give you the lasting sort of satisfaction that you want. So if we're going to be investing, Jesus said, don't do your treasures up in the world. This is really coming through now, isn't it? I'm going to write my own version of what Jesus said, and it's going to be even better than he said. Yes. Do not lay up treasures in this world, but lay up treasures in heaven. Because we know that what happens with treasures of this world, they do wear out. Anybody had their car in the shop lately? Had to buy a new blender, refrigerator, washer, dryer, blah, blah, blah. Hands are going up. We know this stuff wears out. And of course, we're not going to put our faith in our washers and dryers and all those things. We know, but might we do this in some other sort of baubles or bangles or things that we think somehow that would somehow beautify our life and then translate into this sort of sense of inner beauty? Now, there's nothing wrong with beautifying the external of your life, except if it then becomes your only road to heaven. Then you're in a problem. Then you're in trouble. And I've so often talked about my coming to my purpose, passion, and gifts had to do with sort of running that agenda out to its fullest extent and seeing how far, living the American dream would take me in terms of what I assumed that it promised. And what I was told that it promised, and what many people were raised to believe, that, if you get a good job, you get a good education, you're successful, you're going to be happy at every level of your being, and you're going to have this idyllic life. And I actually got to that point in my life, and I realized it was all BS, which is belief system. So that whole notion kind of crumbled and came apart for me. And as it crumbled and came apart for me, it left room for me to be able to ask, okay, if that's not it, what? And that question of letting go of a very concretized notion that you had sort of unquestionably followed for a length of time, the road to your happiness, your follow the yellow brick road notion, what was going to get you the land of Oz, when you find along the way, or you find when you get to Oz, that is not the payoff that you were looking for, you become a new person. You become teachable. You become vulnerable to insight. You become a candidate for inspiration. Yes? When you become a candidate for inspiration, you no longer are the one that is telling the world what it needs to do to make you happy, because you've already run that one out, and now you're asking that higher self, what is it that would really fulfill me? And we begin the journey inward. This becomes the seeking of purpose from inside. This begs the question, what is it that would truly give me a sense of meaning and my life would matter? And what am I connected to that is greater than this physical representation of life? The body life, circumstances life, everything that I would put in some sort of a biographical sketch about my life. Beyond that, what is it that will bring me well-being? And what is it that will wake me up in the morning and give me a sense that I have something to do here? And it's not just connected with creating some sort of outer external condition, but this is connected with something that will actually give me a sense of who and what I am. And that the expression of which will validate my gifts and my purpose and the meaning of life. That is what you and I are looking for. That is so, it's right to the bone of our very being. And so often we don't come by it by insight, but we come by it through pain. And I wish it was not so much that way, don't you? Yeah, because the pain sometimes is, and it's not like, people get confused when you go, well, sometimes you have to learn these things through pain, because God gives you these things so that you can learn. And, well, we don't believe that, because we don't believe that God gives us anything other than what the nature of God is. The nature of God is love and peace and joy and wholeness. But in the context of our own understanding of how to live our life, we end up bumping up against the wrong interpretation of reality. And in playing that out, in taking what we think is the journey to happiness, we end up getting stuck in a rut. And the rut is that we can't believe that it could be any other way. And so sometimes we just keep going down the same road, farther down the road. It's just like you're trusting the GPS, even though there's an intuition that's saying, no, we should be going that way. And the GPS is going, no, go that way. And so you're going farther down the road, and that GPS is wrong. Have you ever had a GPS that's wrong? Yes. So we even understand that even those things that are supposedly guaranteed to be the way to go, and you follow it, but there's a part of you that's like, no, that's not right. Well, there's a lot of part of this that makes sense, and because thousands of people have worn this path, it's a well-worn path, and it's the way to achieve success and happiness and life, and so we're in this path, but there's a part of us that's going, no, right? And so when we keep going down that path, sometimes we have to fall in a freaking ditch, or we have to, end up being lost and sick, or something happens to us that finally says, well, obviously this is not the right way to go. I don't care what it says. I don't care what they say. My family told me I was crazy to become a minister. I had a baby and an 11-year-old. And I gave up my life and went off to this ministerial school. Spent 2 years in the heart of America, in Kansas. 2 years, and went to school and didn't have any money. And Denise would she was a waitress, and I'd come home from school in the morning. She'd give me baby Nathan, and I would have baby Nathan the rest of the day. And she would go off and be a waitress. And people say, you're not going to be able to make it. You can't be doing this. See, that would be this path, It's like there's something that said there's something greater at work here. And we all know this. We all know that essentially there is something within us that is calling for our attention. It's calling for its expression. Because if you want to say, what is God's will for our life? If you want to just bring it down to that very compelling and amazing question, what is God's will for my life? I always say it's, what would the will of the Creator be than for its creation to know itself? A creator would want its creation to know itself as it was created to be, because that would be the greatest validation of the creation knowing itself as it was created to be. It's the full out picturing of the divine design. It's all of the DNA manifesting into expression. That is the perfect will of the divine for you and I. And that sometimes is known as a still, small, subtle whisper. Whisper. It's a whisper. But it's not inaudible. It's just quieter than the other voice, yes? Because the other voice sometimes screams at us to go this way and do something. And we have to get quiet. We have to do our work. We have to sit on that cushion. We have to get quiet. We have to let that mind that is always telling stories and telling us who we are, which really it's telling us who we're not. We just have to question those voices and really listen and say, who and what am I really? And what would emerge for me if I allowed it to? If I wasn't afraid, if my fears weren't coming up right now, what would I give expression to? What would I make space for? What would I allow to emerge for me right now in this time? Because divine will is not something that's just given, contrary to that story, at your birth and then never given again. It's constantly being given. It's a constant, incessant voice that is reminding us of what we are and inviting us to recall that, reclaim that, and give expression to it. Does that make sense? Because we know that the divine and who you are is dynamic. You aren't this static creation. You are constantly being lived by the divine. That God is a verb, and that the divine energy is constantly moving through you, and as it moves through you, it brings with it the remembrance of all you are and who you've come here to be. So when we talk about what is my sacred purpose, it's not something that you have to get the divine to tell you. It is something that the divine is always telling you. This whisper is always going on. And we are always being reminded of what we are and who we are. And then it becomes a question of, once I have the sense of who I am, then it follows as night follows the day, as day follows the night, that we will know what that means. It will indicate the next step for us. It will indicate, perhaps, first of all, the next awareness for us. Because now knowing who I am, this is how I respond. This is how I reply. This is the next step for me in my journey of life. Because it's informed by a new recognition of who I am. And when I know who I am, when I see more clearly that I am this divine being, and I am not encrusted by all these old stories of who I am, by people who couldn't see themselves as they were, then I am free to give expression to this more authentic self. I spoke about this, I don't know if you remember, at the Christmas service, and I thought, let's be good talk to have that again. And I want to continue with this into this workshop that we're going to be doing on March 14th. So that's a little teaser for you. But I think it's worthy. It was probably the most transformative sort of process in my life. It continues to be. It's not a one-time thing. But it oftentimes does lead to some major directional changes, which can be very upsetting to your ego, by the way. They say that a bad day for the ego is often a good day for the soul. And so you have to decide, what are you about? What is your purpose? Do you want to continue to keep doing what you've been doing over and over again with an unsavory sense of who you are? Or would you rather spend some time asking the deeper question? And in so doing, find that sense of wholeness be restored. It's always there. You are always the whole being that we talk about all the time. You're always that. But in the experience from the conscious mind, we want it there as well. Because then we can be mindful and we can be conscious in what we do so that who we are is demonstrated and reflected in the world. Yes? Isn't that how we make the world a place that works for everyone? By being connected with who we are and doing what is ours to do. Okay. Well, good. Well, the second service will be different. I have 4 pages of notes if you want to come back for that one. But this is what the download was for this morning's service. So thank you for bearing with me. What a wild ride this is, yes. And I do want to give thanks. We had a beautiful event yesterday where we had a party, and we did an appreciation process for all the people that see the vision of possibilities that this community offers, and step into that with their actions, with their support, with their service, with their financial support. And I started reading some testimonials that I've received from you about how this community is changing your life in so many beautiful and powerful ways. That is a much bigger story, to hear it that way than to know that whatever's happening for you, that you're a part of creating a community that makes it possible for people to come in here, maybe who've been seeking for years, as we've come to find out, to find a place that is loving and accepting and open and is speaking about a positive path to spiritual growth and unfoldment. And it's happening here, and it's changing people's lives, and it's because you continue to support this community that we can continue to have these doors open and this opportunity for transformation to happen. So thank you for recognizing the value of this community and showing up in all the ways that you do to allow it to continue to thrive and grow.